So momentum is really growing with the narrative that is being pushed now, not just by Micheál Martin on Taoiseach or the Commissioner of An Garda Síochána, but now most of the legacy mainstream media are jumping all over this concept that there are domestic right-wing terror groups in operation in Ireland at the minute, and Ireland needs to be protected from them. And if there's a man to talk about this issue, and I want to get into it in a little bit of depth here today, myth busting, fact or fiction, it's this man here, the wonderful John Wilson, ex-member of An Garda Síochána, and now a freelance, I don't know what he is anymore, but he's a freelance something jumping around from pillar to post all over the south of Ireland. John, how are you doing?
I'm very good, Nick. Rick, what do you call Nick?
Nick?
I'm very good, Rick. I'm very good, Rick. No, I actually feel inadequate because you had Dr. Vincent Carroll on a few days ago, and I feel inadequate. I'm only plain old John. I need some title, please. I need a title, Dr. John.
Well,
there's a famous singer called Dr. John, but I need a title. I feel inadequate.
Listen, you want to title the amount of people calling for you to be the next Uachtaráin na HÉireann is unreal. Or Taoiseach himself, you have your own little legion of fans out there, and I do appreciate you hopping on here, because if something pops into my mind, and I text you, are you about for a chat? You always hop on and oblige me, and for that, genuinely, I am truly grateful. Today's topic, you've been following it. I've been following it. A headline has popped up this morning. Now, this is to be taken with a pinch of salt, obviously, because it's coming from the Irish Daily Mail, but it more or less encapsulates the narrative that's being pushed at the minute. So as you can see, splattered across the middle of the Daily Mail, today's edition, Saturday the 16th, the 15th of November 2025, elite Gardaí tracking groups suspected of plotting attacks on Muslims, on IPAS centres, and threatening our national security. And the big splash is our domestic terror cells. What do you make of this headline?
Paper never refused ink, for a start. And this is part of a narrative that's been spun by our political leaders, for want of a better term. Methinks there are a couple of Trojan horses moving around Ireland at the moment, or walking around Ireland at the moment. Talk to Joe. Joe Duffy retired a few weeks ago, and he's been replaced by a man called Kieran Cuddihy, who presented the flagship evening show on News Talk. Mm-hmm. And last Wednesday, Kieran had on a lady. He gave a lady about 20 minutes of valuable airspace to condemn the patriots in Navan who have erected tricolours around the town. And he gave her 20 minutes to call them racists. And she spoke about, she believes in inclusion and equity. Oh, surprise, a bleeding prize. But she got 20 minutes to cast aspersions on the great people in Navan who have erected the tricolours. She then went on to say that she's in education. I would say that she's more than likely in indoctrination, but that's just my humble opinion. Now, getting on to this latest publicity, I didn't hear our politicians coming out when the gangland criminals in Dublin were planting pipe bombs around Dublin and around other parts of our country. This is a Trojan horse. This is all part of a campaign to clamp down on free speech, to clamp down on free expression. I would suspect to clamp down on free association as well. We are now entering a very dangerous time in our history. That's a fact. And I think this is probably Traitor Martin doing his dirty Harry impersonation in the same way that Slimy Harris did it a few weeks ago. Go ahead, make my tea, in relation to that idiot. But oh no, they're getting all tough now. They're getting all tough on domestic terrorists. These alleged domestic terrorists. I wonder, when is Micheál or Slimy Harris going to define what the term far right actually means? Can somebody please define for me what the what the term far right actually means or stands for. Nobody. I'm still waiting on one of the genii in Leinster House in our political establishment to define what the term far right actually means.
Well, if you look at this headline again, if you just looked at the big capital letter words, "our domestic terror cells," I would say if you were to ask most people in Ireland, if they just saw those 4 words in isolation, "our domestic terror cells," the first thing that sprang to mind would not be right-wing extremists that are planning to attack mosques. If anything, most people that were being asked would say, well, actually, we have a concern about possible terror cells coming in from overseas. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of men that are in Ireland at the minute, and we can't verify who they are. We don't know their identities. We don't know their backgrounds. They're coming from so-called war-torn areas. They're being put together in accommodations across Dublin and Cork in the west of Ireland, all over the place. A lot of people have concerns about Muslim extremism, terrorism coming into Ireland. And there's a very famous closure that happened back at the start of this year. Hard to believe, and it's still closed. The so-called Clonsky Mosque, which is actually the Islamic Culture Centre of Ireland, it closed down in April 2025. Now, I'll make sure I make this clear. The reasoning behind that was put forth that it was to do with a legal dispute over the unlawful appointment of new directors and an incident, in inverted commas, that happened there on the 19th of April. So that mosque has now been blocked off by steel fencing, and a sign on the entrance states that an investigation is still ongoing into a distressing attack. Now, other people have alleged that there could be links there with terror groups that are operating out of the Middle East, the Muslim Brotherhood, for example. This has been strenuously denied by the people that are running this Islamic Culture Centre. But the fact of the matter is, call me old-fashioned, but you fall out with people over time. You have squabbles in businesses about who's director and who's this, and maybe there was some falling out in the boardroom, or there's something to do with someone dipping their hands in the kitty. But it doesn't necessitate shutting the place down for now over 6 whole months. The entire place has been ring fenced off. There was a school in there, everything else. The kids can't get in. People can't get in to pray and do their business. Questions have been asked about that place, but to my mind, no questions have been asked about that place by the same people that are branding the like of you and I as potential cell groups for terror.
Well, first of all, I didn't hear this concern when we had the Jihadi attacks in Ireland. And yes, we've had Jihadi attacks in this country.
Yeah.
The latest Jihadi attack was the attack on the 2 Gardaí in Capel Street. That was a full-on Jihadi attack. We had the other Jihadi attack below in Galway when the army officer was attacked and he was nearly murdered.
Correct.
All right.
He was a padre. I think he was a cleric. He was a priest.
Yeah, and I would go as far as to say that the brutal murder of the 2 gay men below in Sligo was also a Jihadi attack, and there was a third man who was blinded in one eye, and his life was being destroyed.
Correct.
I would classify that as a Jihadi attack. And also, Mr. Micheál Martin and Slimy Harris, why are you not talking about the many, I'd say that the dozens of jihadis who you allowed into this country and who were living in this country for many years, who subsequently headed out to the Middle East to participate, to participate in barbarity by ISIS. ISIS are well established here. The Muslim Brotherhood are well established here. Why would they not be well established here? Because we are the weak link in the European chain. We allow everybody in. We allow everybody in under the guise of diversity and inclusion. And humility. Where is your humility? As Micheál Martin regularly spouts out. This is a Trojan horse for our traitorous government to introduce even more draconian legislation to keep the people down, to keep them quiet, to keep them from protesting, to keep them from expressing their opinions on social media. They're even planning to tap WhatsApp groups. That's what they're at the moment. They are trying to take away every semblance of free speech that we have. And people can say, "Oh, John, you're overreacting. That's really a conspiracy theory." I wish to God that it was a conspiracy theory, but it's not. It is real. It is real life. Many people in this country have a righteous anger about what's happening in this country. And whether Micheál Martin and Slimy Harris like it or don't like it, more and more people are getting concerned about the obvious destruction of our country and the obvious destruction of the Irish race. Because they have eyes in their heads and they're looking around themselves on a daily basis, and they're kind of beginning now to express concern. The middle class are now beginning to rise. I've said it before on a previous podcast. The middle class are now beginning to sit up and take notice about what's happening around them. Okay, and that's really very bad news for our political establishment. But all of these headlines now about the so-called far right and domestic terrorists. There was one incident, one alleged incident took place in this country last week. One alleged incident. When the gangland criminals were going around planting pipe bombs, they didn't get this excited about it.
The gaslighting, I want to look at gaslighting. You know, this is a psychological tactic that's employed by people that are mentally abusing other people, trying to twist their brains. Like, for example, it'll be raining outside, it'll be dark, and I'll say, "John, no, the sun is shining, it's a beautiful day, the temperature's high." But Rick, it's raining and the sky's black and there's clouds and no, John, no, it's sunny out there. It's a beautiful day out there. And then you start to question your own sanity. That's what I believe is being employed at the minute, especially by the Irish government in relation to things that have happened over the last, let's just say the last week, one of which is this group. There's allegedly a group have been uncovered at this time that are plotting terror attacks on mosques and IPAS centers. A far-right group that's, the members of this group, they reckon there's 8 members of this group, and they're called the IRB or I think it's the IRD or the IRC. There's lots of them out there at the minute. Far-right group laughed and joked about an imminent attack on a Galway mosque. Judge Andrew Cody refused bail after application by one of the 2 men arrested in Portlaoise in suspected anti-terrorism operation. Now, this guy is called Karolis Pekauskas. Who apparently is a Lithuanian man who's been living in Ireland for some time and has a Latvian girlfriend. And Karolis Pekauskas is heading up a far-right terror cell aiming at people that are in Ireland as migrants, immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees, ultimately being one himself, joined by a man from Annalong in County Down, Garrett someone or other who no one actually has ever heard of before, despite the fact that, tens of thousands of far-right extremists have been taken to the streets of Ireland now for years. No one even knows who this guy is. No one's ever seen him before. No one's aware of who he is. And this week, another arrest was made of apparently a Sinn Féin activist who has been in and out of Leinster House and shacked up with a member of Sinn Féin and shooting propaganda videos in the living room of their house. And this is Mary Lou looking extremely perturbed here, although she's got nothing to do with this. At least we don't think she has. She's got nothing to do with this. But the headline reads, and this is coming from both the Irish Independent and the Belfast Telegraph, published this yesterday: Sinn Féin activist held over mosque terror plot. Now remember, Sinn Féin are in the far left, radical left coalition that got behind Commie Catherine getting into the Aras. Man arrested was at Sinn Féin event in Dublin 6 weeks ago, addressed by President Catherine Connolly, but not a party member. He's a suspect in a far-right extremist probe. He's met Mary Lou McDonald, and the couple were admitted into Leinster House twice this year as guests of a Sinn Féin senator. John, if anyone should be under investigation right now, should it not be Sinn Bloody Féin?
Again, it goes back to what is the definition of far right? So far, we have 2 people charged with alleged criminality, alleged possession of a pipe bomb, and allegedly planning to attack a mosque. Okay, I await with interest the production of the said evidence to prove that they were involved in a terror plot to blow up a mosque. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Reality is, Micheál and Slimy Harris, if you prioritize the Irish people for housing and for services, and you keep out the invaders from our beautiful country and throw out the tens of thousands of invaders that have entered this country illegally over the last few years, these people who are criminal illegal aliens who call themselves asylum seekers when they are just bogus asylum seekers, then Micheál and Slimy Harris, you won't have to worry about mythical far-right plots to attack mosques and to blow people up. Okay, that's number one. Number two, they announced a housing plan a couple of days ago, and a housing plan for Ireland. And they never mentioned Irish people once in the course of the press conference. I just took, there's one little part of it here. They are offering support for everyone to have a home. Now, I can tell you this, Rick. There are people in Somalia who haven't even embarked on the long road, the long trip to Treasure Ireland, who will be given a house by our traitorous government before Irish men and Irish women that are on housing waiting lists for years. These people will be prioritised. So I would say, Micheál and Slimy Harris, if you're getting worried about the mythical far right, please take care of the needs of the Irish people first, and you will have nothing to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah, if only they would do that. If only they would do that. But of course, they aren't, and they won't, and they have not, as per the time of this recording, which is November of 2025. By the way, the name of this group is actually the IDA, so-called Irish Defence Army. This is the 8-man cell group that we're told has been uncovered and is now being investigated by elite Garda. Only 8 people. Now, the question is as well, John, they've made 3 arrests to date. This story came out over a week ago. What does that mean? 5 other members of this elite group are now on the run. Do they not know who they are? Can they not pick them up? This is the IDA, not the IRA, who, of course, Sinn Féin were effectively the political wing of for a very, very long time. This is not the IRA, this is the IDA. But not only have we got an IRA and we've got an IDA, but we've also got another group, the ICA, the Irish Citizen Army. They released a statement, apparently, a lot of blurred men in balaclavas in front of a tricolour back in September. This video is now being unveiled as well. So we've got the IDA and we've got the ICA. What next? The IPA, the IVA, the IMA, the ILA, what?
Sorry. Yes, sorry. I forgot to tell you. Sorry, please. It slipped my mind. Sorry. Look. I'm a member of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Cavan and have the tricolour. I have the tricolour in the background as well. Okay. Sorry. Oh Lord God Almighty! You couldn't make this shit up, right? Listen. If Micheál Martin and the rest of our treacherous politicians prioritized the Irish people and the people, the Irish people and the Irish race, they'd have nothing to worry about. Okay. Yeah. If they prioritize the Irish people for housing and for services, like having proper health treatment, proper housing, people will be happy with that. They get on with their lives, and they won't cause any trouble, or they'll just sit back and they'll enjoy their lives. Look after the Irish people, and they will be just quite happy. Give them proper housing, proper healthcare, a proper justice system, proper education. Stop the indoctrination of our children. Okay, go back to what going to school is meant to mean. Go to be educated in English, Irish, maths, arithmetic, and all the other subjects. Stop the indoctrination of our children. Stop telling little boys and girls that they can change their sex. Sex is immutable, you effing morons. Okay, you cannot change your sex. Sex is immutable. Now, the ICA, the Irish Citizen Army, I think that goes back to around the early part of the last century, and around the 1916 Rising, they played a big part in the Rising, the Irish Citizen Army. But this is ridiculous. This smacks of fear. They don't know what to do. People are beginning to express their righteous anger. I don't condone violence. You don't condone violence. No. Okay, that's a given, right? But as long as our government, our traitorous politicians continue with their treachery, violence is going to come to the fore. I predicted on a previous podcast that Ireland is like a pressure cooker and that the lid is going to blow off. Well, I think the lid is going to blow off sooner than our traitorous politicians think it's going to blow off. Okay. Yeah. The days of bullshitting and kind of making speeches and telling the people and using phrases like far right to try and intimidate people are gone. If loving my country makes me far right, then I am proudly far right. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. The term far right has been diluted so badly, the same as the word racist has been diluted so badly over the last couple of decades. We don't give a toss anymore. No. Everybody who objects to the invasion of our country is labelled as a member of the far right by our bought and paid for media and by the majority of our traitorous politicians who occupy Leinster House at the moment. Okay, now again to reiterate, being caught in possession or allegedly being caught in possession of a pipe bomb, it's a serious crime. It's a serious crime, okay? But until our government get back to prioritising the Irish people, dissent is going to grow and it is going to continue to grow, okay? And eventually the lid of the pressure cooker is going to blow off. And nobody wants to see that happening.
No, definitely not.
But there's a deliberate campaign. There's a deliberate campaign now. It's very, very obvious to see that our government, they are concerned, despite what they say on our media, on our bought and paid for media, despite the tough talking from our politicians, they are concerned about what is happening in the country. But they never express this concern in relation to the ISIS members, to the Jihadis that have been bred in Ireland and that have went overseas and fought and died overseas for ISIS. We never hear that issue highlighted. I think we are reaching a stage now where our government have a decision to make. Right, they're either the government of the Irish people, or they're the government of the third world.
Yeah,
that's a big decision to have to make now.
Well, actions speak louder than words, John. And I mean, I believe their actions have already defined who they are and who they're behind. And, it has to be said as well. And this is all happening in the space of literally the last few weeks. We had the Halloween night arson attempt on an iPass center in Drogheda. And that in and of itself, as soon as it happened, it was immediately being plastered. It was a far-right attack. They were trying to kill women and children, burn the place to ground, horrible people altogether. A cursory examination of that story. I mean, you look at the place for start. The first thing I picked up on, there's no fire escapes in that place. If people had to be rescued from the top floor and there's 28 people in that building, it at the very least was a health and safety risk for whoever was operating it. Yeah. It turned out that the person that was operating that and had made millions off of the back of it from the Irish government was linked in with some crime feud that was happening in Drogheda at the time, and the contract for that centre has now been cancelled. The government are trying to keep that all very hush-hush. So it went from being a far-right extremist attack to, well, it might have actually been connected to a crime feud that was going on, and the landlord of that centre was actually being paid by the Irish government, a criminal, the proceeds of crime, allegedly, and now the whole thing's been quietened down. So fear, you mentioned the word fear there, and I believe there is a lot of fear at the minute, but the fear is very much in the part of the Irish government, because this bubble is bursting. People can now see that the emperor does not have any clothes on, and the elephant is now well and truly outgrown this room. So let's have a look, John, very briefly. Martin was put on the spot and questioned about this yesterday, along with Jim O'Callaghan and the commissioner, the new commissioner for An Garda Síochána. They were addressing this particular issue, and I'm going to play a quick clip here of Micheál. You can tell me, you can see what he says, react to it, but look at his body language and look at his delivery. I mean, if it ever screams that the man doesn't even believe the words that are now coming out of his own mouth, I don't know what does. So let's have a look at this speech very quickly, and you can tell me what you think.
Yes, I mean, you're talking about an organisation. You're talking about an organised approach to inflict violence on people. We have seen what happened in Drogheda. We have seen attempts in IPAS centres. I'm aware of individuals who've been threatened, whose family members have been threatened in certain contexts, which, to protect the confidentiality of people, I'm not going to go into. And this now is very strong basis for indicating that this has moved on from sort of individuals or a general sort of narrative to an organised attempt to undermine the state and to undermine our society, but above all to inflict violence on people.
Well, what do you think of that?
Every sovereign people have a duty to repel the invaders. That's a fact. I was on a Zoom call last night with a few people, including the great John Waters. And John Waters suggested that we need to have a velvet revolution in Ireland. That's a peaceful revolution to overthrow these traitorous cretins that occupy Leinster House, that control the levers of power in this country. Now, the chances of getting a couple of million people onto the streets of Ireland to force these treacherous scumbags out of office is very, very light. Micheál, you see here, he's getting very worried because the EU Migration Pact kicks into effect next year. And if we think things are bad now, we ain't seen nothing yet, because of our high GDP, our high GDP will dictate the number of invaders that we have to take into the country, or so-called asylum seekers. So when the EU Migration Pact kicks in next year, we will have, we have no control of our borders now as it is, but that will be finally confirmed next year when they start shoveling in people here by the tens of thousands. And that's their plans. That's their plan. Our EU masters have dictated, and Denmark opted out. We had an opt-out from the Immigration Pact, which of course we didn't take, because our traitorous leaders decided, no, we have to be the best boys and girls in Europe. Now we have to do whatever we're told to do. And from I think it's next June or so, I think it's the middle of next year, we are going to have to take an unlimited number of people into this country from the third world and from elsewhere, and we have no choice in the matter now, because our traitor Martin and the rest of our traitorous politicians and our traitorous government have signed us up for the Immigration Pact, which is a death warrant for the Irish race. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it because it's fact. That's factual, all right? And here he is talking about, plans, this new terrorist group, and they're going to inflict violence, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. Micheál, look after the Irish people, and you won't have to worry about the mythical far right letting off exploding bombs and attacking anybody. No. He's got a look of for concern in his slimy eyes. You can see it. I can see it from here.
Yeah.
He's got a look of it's for concern. This is all I believe is a Trojan horse to allow them to introduce even more draconian legislation.
And look at this, John, too.
Rights of the Irish people.
Look at this language here too. He talks about, I'm just skipping through this here. He talks about inflicting violence on people. We've seen attempts in IPAS centres. What attempts? The one in which I'm talking about in Drogheda, and that he referred to in Drogheda, has been busted as being a crime feud among locals, one of which had a contract with his government, that's now apparently been cancelled. He's talking about individuals who have been threatened, their family members have been threatened, but I can't go into that because of confidentiality. In other words, he can't provide any background or any evidence to support that whatsoever. There's a strong basis for indicating that this has moved on from individuals, a general narrative, to an organized attempt to undermine the state.
Do you know what's coming next, Rick? What's coming next is a similar law like they have in the UK to actually ban protests from from taking place, that the An Garda Síochána will decide what protests are appropriate and permittable. That's where we're heading here. That's where we're heading. There was none of these press conferences when the gangland criminals were flipping. They had a free range around Dublin and other parts of the country. They were murdering people at will, and some of these groups also used pipe bombs. They also planted pipe bombs outside the houses of their perceived enemies. This is the Trojan horse to introduce more draconian legislation to impose restrictions on the movement of Irish citizens. That's where they're heading here, and they're so afraid. They are now so afraid because people are wakening up. That's the reality here. Not fast enough, as I've said many times before, but people are no longer willing to turn the blind eye to the destruction of our country. Take a look at the patriots of old. Take a look at what would Michael Collins do if he were to come back to life today? What would Dan Breen do, who was a very famous Irish warrior? Now, I would encourage your listeners to Google some of Dan Breen's sayings, and there's one in particular about people who break into your house or into your country, what he would do with them. Listen, sovereign people have a right to defend themselves and to repel invaders. I'm not advocating violence of any type, but sovereign people have a right to repel invaders. Micheál, you are living in your own little bubble for so long, your own little echo chamber for so long. I think it's time that you departed the scene and let somebody else take over. Not that anyone in your party will be any better, but they can't be any more treasonous and weaselly than you are. Traitor Martin, I will never call you the other name because that's too humorous. You are a traitor.
He is. We've talked about his future, and I don't want to get into this right now because I want to try and wrap this up with one more quick clip from the commissioner from the Gardaí. But the knives really are out politically for Martin at the minute. And there was an analysis done at this conference where Big Jim O'Callaghan was talking about, what was going on, and they were looking over and they were analysing Martin's facial expressions. The word on the street is whether or not it happens or not, but Micheál's days are very limited. And if there is a shoe into his shoes, it will be 6'5" shoes or feet that'll be in there in the shape and form of Jim O'Callaghan, who's a dead duck as well in terms of his job as Minister for Justice. But I want to go from him. And I mean, I think that statement from Martin reeked of desperation and acknowledgement that there's no more covering this up. This is a last ditch attempt to try and smear people with terms that have been thrashed to death and that now no longer hold any actual meaning. So let's go quickly to the Garda Commissioner. He was at the same passing out ceremony, and this is what he had to say about this rise of far-right terror in Ireland.
Is the increase in violent far-right extremism. Today, the Commissioner, Justin Kelly, said Gardaí are monitoring a small number of activists, some who may try to get their hands on guns and bombs and become involved in dangerous activities.
There are people here and they intend to do harm, particularly to some of our migrant communities. And that's something that we have to be completely alive to. We're not immune to that. We've seen that in the UK and across Europe. But it's something, as I say, in An Garda Síochána, we continue to build our capabilities around it.
Last week, 2 men were charged in connection with the cross-border terrorism operation, with the court being told about an alleged plot to attack a mosque, IPAS centres and hotels housing migrants.
So there you have it. Just to hear what he said again very briefly about people who are planning to do what. Listen to this.
There are people here and they intend to do harm, particularly to some of our migrant communities. And that's something that we have to be completely alive to. We're not immune to that. We've seen that in the UK and across Europe.
So his message really is that there are people out there that would seek to do harm to the migrant community. And, you know, there could well be people out there that are actually, you know, they don't like this person, they don't like that, they're bad eggs, they're going out of their way to cause trouble. That's very possible. I'm not saying it's not. But to say that there's a concerted effort and there's a mobilization going on for large groups of people that are going to threaten the state, is it not? And I mean, like, I don't have the exact numbers before me here, but John, I've been covering crime in Ireland, migrant crime in Ireland, since the start of this year, 6 days a week, multiple times a day. And I have, if you were to stack in the balances, right, put it in the balances and put on one side of the balances the amount of attacks that have occurred on asylum seekers and whatnot by Irish people versus the reverse, the amount of attacks that have happened on Irish people from people that are in the country, so-called asylum seekers, fleeing asylum, refugee seekers, etc., unknowns coming in. I think the balance would tip very much one way, and it's not towards the direction that Martin is talking about.
Their sole focus is on the mythical far right. Their sole focus is on protecting the criminal illegal aliens that have invaded our country. They have literally invaded our country. They have invaded our lovely Ireland. Prioritize the Irish people, deport the bogus asylum seekers, the Islamists, and the other tens of thousands of people that have no right to be in this country. And Micheál and Justin, you won't have anything to worry about. Justin can go back to managing An Garda Síochána, and Micheál can go back to being the Taoiseach. The Taoiseach of a sovereign Ireland, which it is not at the moment. And unfortunately, unless we can politically take over this country with a new Irish nationalist movement, I'm afraid that the Irish race is doomed. Getting back to their concerns, their big concerns over the mythical far right. This is a spin doctoring operation. This is a media campaign now to try and persuade Mary and Joseph that went to the protest, the great nationalist protests in Dublin early on this year. All of this balderdash is to persuade them now that you can't be mixed up with the far right, Mary. You're a great lady now. You go to mass every Sunday now, and you're involved, and you're a great community worker now. Stay away from those far right individuals in Dublin. This is meant. The same thing happened at City West, and we touched it on a podcast. There's not a word from Micheál Martin or from Slimy Harris or from Justin, the new Garda Commissioner, about the thuggery by members of An Garda Síochána outside the City West Plantation Centre, where they battered and pepper sprayed decent, honest, hard-working Irish taxpayers who were there out of concern for their future, for the future of their children and for the future of their grandchildren, about the destruction and the invasion of our country. Not a word about those people. Not a word about the fact that they were beaten and battered and bruised by the guards and pepper sprayed. The gentleman with the beard who moved in and to take care of the female camerawoman who was working for GB News. He was pepper sprayed and he was beaten in the head by two guards carrying riot shields. He received 2 cuts to his head. Not a word about that gentleman. Not a word about all the other decent people that were pepper sprayed and beaten. Yes, the Gardaí have a right to deal robustly with the thugs that fired flares at them and that threw bottles and stones at them. Yes. Yeah. This smacks to me of a media campaign to persuade people not to turn out and protest, to stay away from protests, to stay away from the mean far right, because that most people that attend these protests they're far right. This is a campaign to keep people away from protesting against the destruction of our beautiful country. But I have a clear message for the Garda Commissioner and for Mr. Martin and for Slimy Harris et al. No, we don't care anymore. Your hurty words and your doom-laden messages don't work anymore. We don't give a damn. We are solely focused on the survival of the Irish race. All we want is for the Irish race to survive and to thrive. We're not listening to you anymore. We don't give a damn. We don't give a damn about your costly media campaigns targeted against the Irish patriots and the ordinary decent people of this country, trying to persuade them not to turn out at protests and not to be associated with these so-called mythical far-right people that are involved in attacking people who sought international protection in Ireland. You mean the people who invaded our country? These people are not genuine asylum seekers. They are bogus asylum seekers. They are economic migrants. They are asylum shoppers. That's all they are. We don't care. We're not listening anymore. Unfortunately, and this is a sad reality, an awful lot of our people still receive their information and their news from our mainstream media. That's a sad reality. It's changing, but it's changing too slowly for my liking. But we are not going to yield. We're not going to yield, Micheál. Right? We're not going to yield, Micheál. We're not going to yield, Slimy Harris. This is Ireland, our Ireland, and we will fight like hell to save her.
Amen. Well, for anyone that's made it to the end of this, thank you for listening in. Of course, leave your comments below. And listen, get the word out there. You know, I don't know what I'm going to title this yet. I'm going to upload it in a minute or two, but it'll be along the lines of the far-right terrorism in Ireland, myth or reality, fact or fiction. Well, you tell me in the comment section below. You know, we can't say further than that, can we?
No, we can't. No. But I mean, just to reiterate, criminality, the guards are there. They're well paid to deal with criminality. But what we're witnessing is a smokescreen. It's a Trojan horse. All of this coverage is a Trojan horse to allow our treacherous government to introduce draconian legislation to curtail the Irish patriots that are protesting against the invasion of our country and against the destruction of our country. It's that simple.
Yeah, simple as that. And if you agree with us, leave a message below. If you disagree with anything John Wilson has said or anything that I've said, again, leave a message below. The comment section open, but leave the reasoning why. If you think John's talking through his pipe, tell us why. If you think I'm spouting garbage, tell me why and provide evidence to back it up.
Prove us wrong.
Personally, but
prove us wrong.
Happily, and I will happily retract everything I've said and go back on everything that I've spoken if you can prove me that I'm actually wrong and I'm misguided in my thinking, and the same applies to John Wilson as well. So I won't hold my breath for that, because I'm pretty sure we've got it right based on what we can see, the evidence of our eyes and ears. And of course, we know, just in summary, George Orwell's famous closing statement, or one of them in 1984, was the party's final directive was that you reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears, and 2 + 2 = 5. That's what they're trying to pump into people's heads.
Sorry, just one more point. Didn't Hitler burn down the Reichstag in Germany and use that as an excuse to introduce draconian legislation and come down hard on his citizens, didn't he? I think
reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. The Hegelian dialect, it's in operation all over the place, and I dare say that's what they're trying to enforce here in Ireland at the minute. But I'm going to wrap it up. John Wilson, massive thanks to you for taking time out of your Saturday afternoon and providing your insight, and of course, based on your own personal lived experience as a member of Garda Síochána for 30 odd years, plus now as a disappointed, disgruntled, and understandably agitated Irishman. For that, I thank you very much. Listeners, thank you for listening. Cut and paste the link to this video. We share it out there. Subscribe to the channel if you don't already do so. And for now, for the time being anyway, I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, over and out.